What's up, guys? And welcome back to another Poppin' episode. I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you guys for watching and also to remind you guys, if this is your first time here, welcome. And if this is your second or third or you've seen all of them, please just take a moment to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and I'd love to hear from you. And welcome back to another episode of the Pickle Pulse. I am your host, Brian Green, here with my co-host, Christy Barker. And even after all the craziness of our last pod together, we let Ryan sit in on another one.
Have me back.
We'll see how many times we can make Brian and Ryan argue this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming to learn that we feel differently about many things, but that's okay.
Isn't that the beautiful part of the beautiful part of life? You know,
it's good.
Yes,
we need different flavors and varieties.
Although, as we were just saying, in a house full of ladies, I lose all the time, so I need some wins on here. Okay.
Do you need me to leave?
No.
I mean,
no. I already told you, you're the boss lady. I'll get used to you telling me what to do.
I love it.
So today, we are going to talk the do's and don'ts of pickleball tournaments. All right. Yeah. So if you've been playing in a bunch of tournaments and you kind of are at a point where you're like, all right, do I move up to the next level? Am I behaving correctly? Am I doing the right thing? We'll help you with that. And then also, I would say some of the guys that are out there, guys and gals that want to try their first tournament, what to expect, maybe how to prepare.
Yep.
I don't know. You tell me, Christy, you're the boss lady.
Well, this is kind of like a brainchild that I feel like Ryan and I kind of came up with together because we've definitely developed a lot of thoughts and feelings, T's and F's, I call them in my professional world, and my T's and F's about tournaments, just over time and playing so many, you just kind of, you learn what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't. And so we kind of wanted to talk about it here and see if other people feel similarly, see if this might help some other people. Yeah.
No, I think it's always helpful to be mentally prepared, but if you don't know what you're coming to, which is what my first experience was, it's really tough because it's kind of shocking. You walk in and everyone seems so good. Most of them are 3-0 or 3-5. Yeah. But at that point, my first tournament, I was like, man, these guys are crazy good.
Right.
Yeah, not be intimidated, expect to win, et cetera, et cetera. Exactly. Coach Brian coming out.
Exactly. So yeah, we got some stuff, we some thoughts that we came up with. We just wanted to share with you all. So we'll kind of go through stuff and see where the conversation takes us. But
perfect.
Yeah, the first thing we talked about want to talk about is how do you pick which tournaments to participate in? And something that may have changed over time, over your first tournament versus where we are now after playing 500, 600, what feels like a lot.
Yes, you two especially. You guys are, seems like grinding week in and week out.
Right? It's like, oh my gosh, let me check the calendar and make sure I haven't already agreed to play in a tournament that weekend because there's so many. But so I'll put it to you two. How do you choose a tournament?
So
how do you decide what to do?
I'll preface this before I even get in front of it, and that probably the way you and I choose a tournament is a little different than someone just looking to get into the tournament world. So I would say at a higher level, my take, and this is something that I've had kind of an epiphany this year because I've played lots and lots of local tournaments, is that I sort of know where I stand versus most of the top guys. I play and practice with them, and yes, I can show up and have a great day and win some medals occasionally, but I'm going to play for fun a handful of the local tournaments just to play with the peeps and be out there and see. But I think at this point, I'm going to spend my money to go to APPs, to PPAs. One of my pet peeves is to show up at a tournament and play guys that I practice with all the time. Yeah. Right? And it's like, I could have played you guys for free. Come on. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here? So I want to travel a little bit this year, see some new faces, and that's kind of how I'm going to decide which tournaments I play.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've started to come along on that same thought. Like, I'm getting tired of playing the same people in tournaments. Like in these local tournaments, it's a lot of the same crowd, which is fine. Yeah. But when it comes to paying for tournaments and like lodging, if you don't live close enough, like these things add up and they're not cheap anymore. So if I'm going to spend the money and I'm going to spend the time, I want it to be against different people to really, I feel like I can test my skills better that way. So like if I go into a 5-0, excuse me, a 5-0 tournament in New York or Philadelphia, like chances are most of the people in those brackets are going to be people who you haven't played before.
Yeah.
And I noticed that
matters.
last year when I played my first APP tournament in New York, and I didn't play anybody who I knew, and it was a 4-5 tournament, and it was one of the best experiences I've had because it was just playing
All new
different
looks.
people.
And
Yeah.
I got to give Ryan a shout out because it was also a qualifier, which means people sandbag, and he took home gold. So
Let's go. Nice.
To get a golden ticket. you
Yes.
did, yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah,
funny.
that's pretty
But
cool.
I think for me at this point, it's more about playing new people, seeing new faces. Like,
Yeah.
sure, you have the core people who like you want to have the experiences with. Like, you want to see some friends there, of course,
For sure.
but
Yeah.
like when you're playing in the brackets, you want to play people who you haven't seen before.
Well, and I think we're lucky in this area in that we have like the AIP who runs pop-ups all the time. So like little
Sure.
cash tourneys
Yeah.
on the weekends, and they do it most weekends. And that's a
Right.
great way where we can play high-level people and get in games without spending $150 for a
Yeah.
tournament.
yeah.
I agree.
And shout out to Frank again too, because
Oh,
Frank's
yeah.
another.
That's
Is
true.
another like he's set a blueprint for like local like cheap tournaments. Like it's a few hours, you're in and you're out. You're getting great play, and it's a competitive field.
Yeah.
And you're not spending hundreds of dollars.
That's right. And if you're Ryan Kane, you're winning hundreds of dollars.
There you go.
Not recently.
Exactly. Well, and for me, I think when I first started out, it was about what's local. What do I know? Because I didn't know, I hadn't heard anything. Like, you know, you just in the mini crowd I was playing in, they said, "Oh, Legends," and I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. So I'll go play Legends. So again, shout out to Ron who puts on many tournaments for us a year. It was just what's available and what's local. Fast forward to today, you know, you kind of both touched on money. For me, one of the things that attracts me is a payout.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Not
Good
only,
point.
you know, I might be paying some money, but I like when there's a cash payout. That's kind of what attracts me now,
Yes.
which I am willing to pay for. A shout out to Amy and Alex who run LFG tournaments. They did an early bird registration, and I loved that. It was $30 to enter their tournament, which is one of the cheapest I've ever seen. But they did early bird registration. I didn't even have a partner, but I saw $30, and I was like, I'm signing up.
Signed up.
That's awesome.
So like, you know, not only was it a cash payout tournament, but it was also a reduced rate, which was, I thought, really cool. So it was a couple months early, but as somebody who likes to play tournaments and know that I want to get in some of those, I was willing to take the risk and sign up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll say to our listeners out there that aren't playing at the 4.5, 5.0, plus level, and you're looking to get into your first tournaments, a couple of little tidbits of advice that I would put out there is find one that's close to you.
Yep.
I mean, when you're getting in your first tournaments, you don't need to travel a long ways.
Yes.
You can go to pickleballbrackets.com
Yes.
and type in Virginia or Maryland or Delaware or wherever you're going to be, whatever's close to you, and it'll bring up the tournaments that are around. And then you can actually click on the tournaments and then the division that you're looking in to see who's in your bracket.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool too, because you can go, hey, I don't know any names on this list. Awesome. So these are all new people. So
Yeah.
that would be a really good one to go to.
Yeah.
I think
agree.
another good thing to look at that we might touch on later would be check the format of the tournament.
Yeah.
Like
It's huge.
some people are like recently there's been a wave of round robin tournaments.
Okay,
where it's
can
like
you
there's pool
explain
play.
the two formats for people that may not know?
Sure. So your standard double elimination is what most tournaments have always been, where there's going to be a winner's bracket. And as long as you're winning in the winner's bracket, you're playing 2 out of 3. That's 2 out of 3. But if you lose, you fall to the consolation bracket where you play one game to 15 and you just keep going until you lose.
Yep.
So that's your standard double elimination. And then the newer thing that I've seen at all levels
Seems pretty popular.
is like round robin, like pool play. So if you've got 16 teams, splitting them up into 4 groups of 4, and then playing your other 3 teams, and then take the top 2 from each pool, and then have a single elimination playoff.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would say if there's people out there who are looking to like get into tournaments, make sure you check that. If that's something that you feel strongly about, you can find that also on the website.
And there's 2 trains of thought there, and that depending on how big the pools are. So if it's a 5 or a 16 pool, then you know, hey, I'm signing up for this tournament, and I'm minimally going to get 6 matches or 5 matches.
That's right.
So that's
a big
cool.
deal.
So for someone that's coming in and trying their first one, that may be a really cool direction because you know, okay, there's no chance I'm going 2 and out.
Right. More games. Yeah. More games, the better.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Because that's what you're looking for early on as experience,
Right.
to kind of see where you level out versus the other people that you think are at the same level as you. And getting more games is always better.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Now, I don't know. Do we want to get ahead of ourselves and talk about what we like and dislike on the other two?
I think it's here on the
yeah.
table now. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
So, because I know I actually thought that I like pool play until the last two tournaments I played in were that way, and I realized it's a flawed way to run a tournament for a high level person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a con to pool play would be it's very dependent on how the groups look. Like
Correct.
the
Yes.
groups have to be fair across the board. And like whoever's in charge of that, whether it's the software or the tournament directors, it needs to be fair across the board. Otherwise you get a stacked group and one of the better teams might not make it out. And then you have a weaker group where some of the teams probably should have been.
And I think
Right.
this came up at the tournament, the Dildinkers tournament, about a month ago, where I show up and Christy's group is so stacked. It's like all the top teams are in one, and
Yeah.
then the other bracket's really light.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, how did they decide to do this? And I
Yeah.
think they used UTPR versus Duper.
And that's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. It comes down to seating. And let me preface this by saying there's no perfect seating format. You know, UTPR isn't perfect. Duper's not perfect.
But UTPR is super flawed at this point.
Right.
They're way behind.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
So it just makes it so tricky. And unless the person running the tournament, whether that's the tournament director or whether they hire someone to do it, unless somebody knows the group of people and knows what is fair based on the participants that are there on the table, I think it's so hard to get it right. Like Ryan's saying, it makes it for a really skewed bracket.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you feel like your Duper is indicative of your current level?
I mean, you could have an entire episode on Duper,
Right.
like in.
But
in
I
people's
think that was a
thoughts on
pretty
Duper.
clear question. Do you feel like your Duper is at your current level? Is it close within, let's go 0.2 either way?
I think it's. Yes, I think it's fair. I think it's a reasonable.
Okay.
And to be clear, I think it's the best that we got.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
beggars can't be.
Would you
choosers.
agree,
I would
Christy?
agree with that.
Because-
Yes.
Where I'm going with this is I would also agree. It's got me at like 4-8. And when I'm playing 4-5 guys, I usually win. And when I play the 5-0 guys, I get smacked. So I feel like I'm right,
Right
in
in the
between.
middle.
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And so why are the tournament directors, and maybe Ron could help, or who's the lady who runs LFG? Amy. So I
and
gotta
Alex.
meet her. She's
Alex Guy. Amy's wonderful.
Amy Taylor.
Alex Guy. Yeah, they ran a great tournament this weekend. They're,
did.
yeah.
maybe they can tell me, are you using Duper for the seedings? Because if you're not,
Yeah.
I think that's a flaw in the system right there.
So that's something that I really enjoyed about this past weekend was Amy and Alex were very transparent about the seating. Like I happened to play Christy in the first round, and
Okay.
that sucked.
Yeah.
Because we could have done that 10 minutes down
Yeah.
the road.
Right.
But I had asked Amy, just like, what did you use to seed this all out? And she said Duper. And like,
Okay.
everyone's got their feelings on Duper, but at least we know.
Yeah.
At least we know. We
I
don't
feel
have
like
to
it's
it.
close. Like,
Yeah.
We don't have to
again,
like
we
it,
could
but
do a
we
whole
know.
pod on it, but I feel
Right.
like it's pretty darn close. It's the best we
Yeah.
have.
Yes,
It is.
I agree with that. So going back to the tournament you mentioned a couple weeks ago with the kind of flawed rating, that was UTPR. I'm making an assumption. I know for a fact it was not Duper because I was my father's daughter and I took out my calculator and I had Duper in my hand and I literally added every team's Duper together. I looked up every participant, added the team Duper, and I came up with a team Duper. It wasn't many. I think there were 8 or 10 participants, what have you. So it didn't actually take me very long. And I emailed the tournament director and I said, hey, like, I don't know what you're using, but based on Duper, you've got one half of the bracket that's really stacked. You've got another half of the bracket that doesn't look as stacked. And that's nothing. We're not taking things away from those people in that bottom half of the bracket because we're talking inches, not miles. Like there's not much separating these people.
No, like everyone belonged, but it was
Correct.
pretty clear to see that one side of the bracket was
Correct.
heavier than the other.
Correct. And people on both sides of the bracket said it.
Yeah.
So there were people
Right.
on both sides acknowledging this. So I emailed the tournament director and I said, hey, it doesn't look right. Based on Duper, what's going to happen is you have 1, 2, and 3 seed on the same side of the bracket. So therefore, there was no come around, which is another thing we can touch on this tournament is when I say no come around, it means that when you lose, the best you can do is third place. We're not doing double elimination to where you can all battle your way back and potentially get gold. So the best you can do is third when you go to the losers bracket. So that is so significant because you have a 1, 2, and 3 seed that are battling each other. One is going to make it to the gold medal match. The best that your 2 and 3 seeds can do is your bronze medal match, and only one of them will get a medal potentially. Yep. And you've got a 4th place team who is going to make it to the gold medal match, and it'll be a 1 seed versus a 4 seed, and your 4 seed will be taking home a medal without having battled a 2 and 3 seed.
And you guys were playing for money, and that's
where it came in.
We were playing
for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what I emailed them, I'm actually really proud. My dad's going to be so happy. What I emailed them and said was going to happen was the exact thing that happened.
Wow.
Yep.
To a T. So, I mean, that speaks to the accuracy of Duper as well. So, I mean,
maybe it's a Duper fan club podcast.
Careful, right?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right. But, I mean, one of the questions I have later on in this was, tournament icks, and we can go there now. I mean, for me, I was a knowledgeable consumer. I signed up for a tournament knowing that there was no come around. So when Ryan mentioned know the format, that was information for me. I knew that there was no come around. I also was thinking, well, there's no come around, but I'm going to rely on the fact that there's a reasonable seating measure being employed, which there was not.
Yeah.
There was a faulty system there. And I think that the tournament directors heard us. My email was replied to. There wasn't much said, but it was replied to. Hopefully they'll take that information for future tournaments. My takeaway as a consumer is I won't play tournaments with no come around anymore. That's a tournament ick of mine.
So wait, but PPAs are no come around.
So I think
except for PPAs.
Well, PPAs I think are a little bit different in that I think that there is more weight there. I mean, that's to me a bigger deal than your local tournaments.
Agreed.
And you're also not playing for money.
You're not playing for money.
Yeah.
Like in PPA, you're playing for a medal.
Yeah. And hopefully getting sponsors and being recognized.
Sure.
Yeah.
I also think that that's a little bit more evenly matched from what I've seen. I've played in 2 PPAs and it seemed very reasonable and well done. I went in expecting that as well. There's no come around. Okay. But I'm happy with a 3rd place finish in a PPA.
Sure.
No, that's
to
what I got
say
too.
that versus a local tournament where I feel like I can do a little bit better. So
yeah. I would say my tournament is just crazy long waits.
Yeah.
And this goes into something we've talked about in the pod before, and that I would love for them to try. I don't know that this is the solution, but I would love to try to go to a rally scoring format just to see what it looks like and how do people take it. Do 4 or 5 tournaments a year that are rally scoring, see how people handle it.
Yeah.
But to keep matches in a more scheduled place would be great, because sometimes winning could be to a disadvantage in a tournament, believe it or not. And I know you guys have had this experience. I feel like everyone has, where you win a couple of matches and it takes 2 hours for the backdraw to catch up.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you've been sitting forever.
Yep.
And then you get your
plays
next
a
match.
factor.
I mean, I'll never forget. I played APP Philadelphia last August with our good buddy David McNally.
Dollar.
Dollar in the jar.
Dollar. Our bracket started at 8 a.m, and we finished our gold medal match at 6:45 p.m.
Wow.
So it
That's
took
a long day.
over 10 hours, and it's just that's a long. You know what I mean? That's a long day, and in those events with a lot bigger of a turnout, you can kind of understand it. But when it comes to local events, I wish there was more transparency. So my ick would be lack of transparency across the board. If you think there's going to be 30-minute waits between each match, just tell us. Let us know. If you're only going to use these 3 courts for 5.0, let us know. That way we don't come up to you guys and we're like, well, hey, court 7 down there is wide open. Why don't you just put us there?
Well, that's a good nugget, because a lot of times they'll have a 3-5 and a 5-0 match right next to each other for some reason. Why is there not areas where people are playing kind of together in the right area? And then you can at least hang out there, and you're not going to miss your match, and you can watch what's going on.
Right. So that transparency would be great. And the transparency about the format and all those kinds of things. Like that's my ick, is just the lack of that at some tournaments.
So you just sparked something in my brain that we didn't get to, but the preparation for a tournament for someone that's new, for someone that's been around for a long time, is you expect a long day. And with the expecting a long day, like the things that I do on tournament day, it's not perfect, but I've found that helps me is that, you know, lots and lots of water. I'm a caffeine freak when I'm playing, so I'll probably have some Celsius and Red Bull in my cooler as well, just to get jacked before the tournaments. And then I carry Giant. You can buy these little pouches of trail mix for $1.25, and it is like the perfect snack, easily digestible, energy. It's got sugar, it's got protein, it's got all the stuff in it.
Perfect.
So having that kind of stuff, and then I pack peanut butter and jelly sandwiches too.
There you go.
Yeah. So again, easily digestible stuff. I don't have to go anywhere. And if I do have a good day and make it 10 hours, I mean, because I can imagine you were hurting by the end of that day.
I felt so bad for my partner the next day, because I played mixed the next day, and I'm like, not to mention it's in the middle of August.
Oh,
so
yeah.
super
Wow.
hot, super hot. I'm like sunburnt. I'm like, feel like I'm, not feeling well. And then I have to turn around. Yeah. Me and the sun don't get along. So then the next day I was just toast.
Yeah.
Like in
Makes it
multiple
hard.
ways. Like sunburnt, but also like my legs are shot, and like I didn't prepare, to go back to your point, I didn't prepare enough for that type of long day in the heat, like looking around for water, like looking around asking for snacks and things like that.
Yep.
And it obviously like can impact how you play,
Oh, big time.
It's true.
So
Yeah. I think fueling for me it's not just the day of, it's prior, like the week prior. I always try to really be mindful of like what I'm eating and Gatorade and water leading up to that event, and know my start time. Like as soon as I get a start time, look it up. Okay, what time do I want to arrive? Little things like that I think help make the tournament experience a lot better. By the way, what kind of start times do you guys like? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I'm a morning guy.
Okay. So
I
you would
am.
prefer an 8 a.m. start?
Well, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. In a perfect world, like 9:30.
Yeah.
Where I can
Okay.
drink a bunch of coffee.
Yeah.
Be mentally prepared and get in there. And like, sitting around all day and waiting on a bracket drives me insane. The anxiety is just going nuts.
Yeah.
for me, it depends on the location. So like this past weekend, there was a tournament in Pennsylvania and it's 2 hours away, but I noticed that men's doubles was at 8 a.m. So I had to make a decision. Well, do I want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and get ready and just leave that morning and then, go through the day off of waking up at 4:30,
Which is going to be tough.
which is going to be tough. Like it's not hard enough playing all of these great players.
For sure.
Or did I want to come up the night before? And so I ended up staying the night before. But I think for me, it depends on the location. If we're talking somewhere that's, reasonable, 30 minutes, an hour, I'm all for a 9 o'clock start.
Yeah.
Like I agree with you. I'm a morning person. I want to get going. Like I'm waking up on tournament day, like ready to go.
Yeah, that's right.
So when I've got a bracket that starts at 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like sitting around kind of getting antsy, like
That's hard.
I'm ready.
All right. Flag this moment. Ryan and I agree on something.
Right. Well, and I think you recently had a start time of like 4:30 or something like that
Yes.
at a recent tournament, and that's tricky to plan for and fuel for, etc. The other thing that didn't happen, you've got people like Ryan playing in the open bracket. Like there's stellar play in these brackets right now in the open divisions. It made it so that other people couldn't watch the open divisions. And so I found I would love for open divisions to be a little bit earlier so that people can watch. Not me. I hate being on center court. We played our match against each other on center court, and it's like a whole nother, like I would rather go out in a field, play with nobody watching, and then come back and be like, okay, this person won or this person won. I don't like center court, but I do think it's cool for people to be able to see open level play, to watch LJ and Abika and Monica and Bill play each other. Like that is so, it's my jaw is on the floor the whole time. Like people need to see this. Like this is
But
good pickleball.
And it happened to be at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So the
Nobody was
crowd was not
watching.
nearly
Yeah.
the same as it was at like noon.
Yeah.
Which
I
kind of
agree.
brings up to another point, which is like, don't you think like tournament directors should maybe prioritize the open level so that the highest level of play gets more eyes on it? And I would just throw that out there.
Yeah, I think your thinking is right on that for sure, and that you want to show people where they can go, what can be accomplished with hard work, what high level pickleball looks like. It's like what was that thing they did on pickleball last year with McEnroe and Sampras? And,
all
that.
like an exhibition match.
Yeah, but then they also did one that almost looked like the show where they have the big balls and and it was like kind of a joke, and you were watching these people play 3-0 pickleball on national television, and I'm going, this is what you're portraying to the country that pickleball looks like.
Yes.
Right.
I mean,
I felt so similarly. Thank you for bringing that up. But I had somebody come up to me at work and they're like, oh, I saw pickleball on TV last night. And it's what you're referencing. And I was like, please don't think that that's pickleball.
Don't think it's that.
Please. Like, I'll show you pickleball. Here's my YouTube page. Like, let me show you some stellar players in our area.
Yeah, because I remember feeling very offended because, everyone knows I play and they think that's what I go do. That's not what I go do.
Right. So I just think, and it's different coming from like open level players. So I'd love to hear what other people have to say about it. But I personally feel that you should prioritize that, and not necessarily just for the players, but for like, if we're all consumers and we're all watching the product that's on the court, put it at a more reasonable time where you can get more eyes on it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we just finished up our men's league last night, and congrats to Gage and Ross.
Yeah, I saw that. Congrats,
won.
guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because Benny Boy and Broker could not play. Ben had to go out of town on a work thing.
Gotcha.
So that opened the bracket wide open, man.
Come on, Ben.
We were super excited about those guys falling out. But and we played well. We went 3-2 on the night. Actually finished third.
That's congrats.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Although the way we finished third is pathetic, and I won't even mention it. I'm sure you'll hear about it at some point. But the coolest thing about it was at the end of the season tournament, they did the lower level tournament and the higher level tournament at the same time. So in between the matches, the guys could watch, and like all the courts had tons of people around watching. You felt like you were on center court. And it was super fun. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. And I sort of thrive in that situation. Like, just take the nerves and use them for whatevs. Hit the ball hard. Right. You know the way I like to play.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like more eyeballs on the, on the good play. Yeah, on the better play.
For sure.
Put us at, 10 o'clock and have everyone else filter in throughout the day. Yeah. Like, as you mentioned earlier, I think it's a shame that the best players in our area, not that many people got to watch them on Sunday night because it's at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. Like people have work
in
the
Pennsylvania.
Next day. Like in Pennsylvania, like, like if you started at 9, 10 in the morning, we're looking at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. People are still, they're not worried about getting home quite yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would agree. Showcase the higher level play a little more. And we're going to try to do a part 2 on this and get some tournament directors in to hear their take on some of this stuff as well. I think that'll be fun.
I would love, our local tournament directors who we adore, Ron, Amy, Jennifer Bratley, Alex Guy, of course. I would love to hear their perspective on things because there's probably reasons behind everything that's done. I'm talking like I don't like a no come around, and I want an early start time and whatever, and I do. Don't get me wrong, but like there's probably a method to the madness. I mean, we know there is. They're very logical people, but I would love to hear their perspective and what we can do as consumers to make their lives a little bit easier. Because I tell you what, watching Amy and Alex this weekend leaving the venue at 1 a.m. and having to be up and at Walmart to get snacks for us at 5 a.m. That's not a fun take. Right. Like they're grinding for us on these weekends. They're putting 30 hours of work into a 36-hour weekend.
Yeah. And I also would like to plant seeds with those guys. It's just about being open to change, doing things a little different. Like I was talking about, maybe trying some different scoring formats.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have plenty of icks about all of us players. So, like,
for sure,
it'd be good to hear.
Don't text me about the air conditioning.
Yeah. Like, no, you're not going to be able to get on court 1. Everyone wants to be on court 1.
That's true.
Too bad.
It's true.
But
it's funny you say that because I have one of my icks as open courts. I hate when I'm at a tournament and I see open courts.
Yeah.
But guess who also hates it? The tournament directors. Like, they want it to move along just as quickly as we do. So, yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched on a few things that I had already. We talked about icks. Let's go to tournament loves. What do you love about a tournament and what keeps you coming back to that tournament?
Ooh, I love the atmosphere. I'll go first here.
Please go.
I say I love the atmosphere. I love even though talking about how much I hate playing my friends in the first round of tournaments, I love hanging out with everybody. We all share a common interest. And it's about, like, at the end of the day, it's about the experience. Like, we're all there for fun. Of course we want to win, but you can go 0-2 and have just as much fun as someone who won it all because you're hanging out with everybody. You're able to watch a lot of good play. You're able to watch your friends, and
we're able to bet on them
on the side.
Yeah.
Because we're sitting there once we got booted out of the bracket this weekend. I'm like, okay, dollar on the table for all of us.
That's right.
How is this going to end? Or is LJ going to take it in 2, or is he going to sweep here? Are we going to 4? Like, what's going to happen in this gold medal match? So we like
that's
we
fun.
like the gambling aspect as well.
Yeah. No, I can't wait for pro pickleball to have real gambling. And, you know, that's going to be, I like to gamble on football. I feel like I would do better in pickleball.
Right.
We'll see.
You know your stuff.
But yeah, I love the atmosphere. I think that's a very important part of it. What do you guys think?
So I think for me, it's the ability to go compete. You know, I'm 44 years old.
Oh, yeah.
There's nowhere else that I can go that I think would get that competitive atmosphere to get my, you know, I played a lot of golf in high school and I've surfed and I do things that kind of bring the adrenaline up and all the way to like I've played music and sang in front of people, played my guitar in front of hundreds of people before. And I mean, talk about a terrifying experience that brings out the best in you.
Right.
And I feel like that's what a pickleball tournament can do is, yes, it's going to be a little terrifying. There's going to be some anxiousness to it. And it's because you really want a good result, right? Where else are you going to go find that competitiveness, that inner belly, that tickle that I like to call it? And that's what I love about playing a tournament.
Yeah, I would agree with you both. I think both of your answers are what it is for me as well. Like, how cool that we can compete and kind of test our mental toughness. And that's an interesting thing for me right now because I've always been somebody who actually plays better in tournaments than I do in rec play. Recently, that's switched for me. I feel like I'm doing better in rec and crappier in tournaments.
Welcome to my club.
I didn't really want to join it, but like, since I'm here, thank you for the welcome.
Maybe you should hang out with Ryan more.
But I've just like, I've noticed, okay, my tournament play is going down and it's in between my head. Like I'm in rec play doing the things that I want to do. And so like, to me, the difference here is like that anxiety you're talking about, like, and what cooler way to like try to exercise my mental toughness and get that muscle a little bit stronger. I think that's really cool. And the people are what make it for me. Like the fact that we've got people from all different walks of life, all ages, you know, I have more contacts in my phone from pickleball than any other era in my life or any other hobby that I've had in my life. I just think it's really cool. I think the people make it. So I really enjoy the atmosphere as well.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So we kind of touched on this, but how do you prepare for a tournament? So like partner selection, practice, like drilling versus playing, things like that. How do you prepare when you're getting ready for a tournament?
I like to pick, when it comes to partner selection, I want to be able to play with somebody who I can practice with. I value the practice. I like being upfront with these people. I like saying, look, however it looks, I don't care. Like, I want to win. Whether that means you're hitting 90% of the balls, I'm hitting 90% of the balls, I don't care. But telling them that on tournament day after no practice is a little different than like being able to go out and play rec and like just try some things. Like I'm better on the left or better on the right. So I want to be able to practice with people who I'm going to play with. I also like the energy. You know, I'm thinking about who can bring the best version of Ryan out of me. Yeah. You know, or like if I'm in a tough spot, what like who says what to me to like get me out of that? Or like when I hit a good shot, like we like yelling at each other, or like are we just walking back to the baseline? Like,
no, that's a good point because I've played with super hype people before, and that's not my style. It gets me too hype. Okay, and then I can't play. All right, there you go. And like I said, I'm a caffeine guy. I need to get going, but there's a fine line.
There's a level,
right? It's so funny. I have two quick stories, real quick. One, I was playing with Allison against Rachel and Carly this weekend. Out the bat, first point, I get body bagged in the chest. Yeah, fine. It is what it is. That's part of the game. Second point, I get hit in the mouth. And I turned to Alice and I said, I taste blood. And she's like, that's great. Yeah, use that. And I'm like, no, literally, I am I'm bleeding right now. we're getting crushed by them. Like they're just off to the races. Rachel and Carly are both firing on all cylinders. Their game is working perfectly. Finally, they miss one. It's going out the back and it hits my paddle. And I held my my paddle in the throw position and did not throw it because that would not be responsible therapist, patient Christy. And I did not throw it.
Although it would have been more fun if you chucked the shit out of it.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Then you'd be joining my club.
Right? Exactly. So then Allison so appropriately called a timeout and literally took me outside of the venue. Like,
oh my gosh.
We're going outside because she could just see it all over my face. Like I was livid. The opposing team, they did nothing wrong. They did everything right. They were doing what they're supposed to do.
And they're
Rachel's
playing their
yelling.
game. They're bangers.
And
they're on fire.
They were on fire.
Like
they couldn't miss.
They were
and Rachel was doing her yelling thing. It got in my head. And Allison very appropriately called a timeout, took me outside. We composed ourselves. We ended up losing that game. But the next game we came back and won. And even Rachel even came and checked on me in between matches. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm definitely fine. You're just playing a great psychological game right now, and you're playing beast. Like you're the mental game you've won and the physical game you've won, and it's awesome. Like keep doing what you're doing. Like she's doing the right thing. Can't be mad at her. That's a good sport." So that I'm just speaking to like somebody who like is able to chill you out. I just kudos to Allison who was able to read the room and like chill me out right there.
And I play with her too.
Yeah,
and she's
so
great
good
at doing that too. Yeah.
And then later on in the day, James and I were playing against Wayman and Audrey, and I got hyped after a point. Like I'm screaming, "Oh, yeah, let's go!" And like, James pulls me back online. He goes, I need you to chill."
Yes.
And I was like, "Thank you for that, because you're so right. Thank you for again reading the room
But
and
that's so
realizing what I
Broker.
want."
He's like calm and collected.
Right.
He just wants to strut away after a good shot.
Right, exactly. But no, he's like, let's calm down a little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm with you.
But then you get somebody like Arpit, right?
Yeah, that's scary hype.
He's hype after everything. Like you'll miss a serve, and he's we're yelling about it. And like in a tournament, sometimes I'm like, you know what, like. You're yelling, like let's yell, let's do it, let's do it. Like,
hey, as long as you can handle it,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen it the other way where he almost like crushes the partner because the partner's not that guy.
For sure. It's always,
he
it's
doesn't
always
know how
better.
to handle them.
And it's always better when you're playing well.
Yeah,
So like when
that's
you're
right.
yelling out of, a positive shot rather than yelling at each other.
Right.
Obviously,
It's true.
But and like you said, that kind of style is for some people, and other people either can't handle it or don't want to handle it. I find that gets me, like, I'm very like internal with my like positive like self-talk and things like that. But Arpit like vocalizes it when he's like, great shot, like that's all you doing stuff like that, and I'm like, you know what, like you're right.
Yeah.
Like you're right. Like it gets me going, and that's something I really have come to enjoy.
Yeah.
Out of a partner.
I like it.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at partners, good energy that matches what you want.
What you want.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's different for
That's
everyone.
very right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think this really encapsulates a lot of the tournament experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully we gave a couple of nuggets out there to you guys that you can use. And then just some fun stories from tournaments, because those are always fun too.
Oh, yeah.
Love.
Is there anything else that we need to add before we close things out?
I don't think so. Just make clear when you're setting up a tournament, just make clear what we should expect.
Yeah,
As
transparency.
I
consumers.
love that. Yeah.
As consumers, just tell us. That way we can make an informed decision whether we want to play or not.
For sure.
Most of us want to play.
Well,
Yeah.
and one last little tidbit on that, and that they 4-5 division paid out at the Legends tournament this time. It was a cash, which I thought was really cool and a great idea from Ron. He didn't really, I think he had sent out an email or something about it, but don't expect me to read all your emails. I get lots of them. So it should be up on the thing that it's cash, because when I went to sign up and I saw that the tournament price was like double or triple what it normally should be, I walked up to Ron. I was like, "Have you lost your mind, sir?" And he's like, "No, I'm paying cash." And I was like, "Oh,
No, it's going to be worth
changes,
it.
That
Yeah.
changes it. Yeah.
That
it
changes
definitely
it.
does." But like transparency would have
Transparency.
avoided that conversation, Ron.
There you go. I got to give a shout out to Ron real quick before we end. 'Cause
Okay.
he did pool play last summer a couple times. And when I say we, several people approached him individually and was like, "Hey, we don't really like the pool play. The pools are lopsided. It doesn't seem right." I love Ron so much. He listened.
He does.
Not a lot of tournament directors would do that. He was
did.
like, okay, if you all want, if you as higher level players, if you don't want the pools, then we'll take it back to double elimination. So thank you for listening, Ron. We really appreciate that.
That's awesome.
So,
What
good
a
note to end
great
on.
way to close out.
Yes.
And Ryan, we appreciate you sitting in
Thank you
on
guys.
another pod,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
Always amazing to have you.
Yep. Thank you guys for having me.
And
This is great.
Christy, it's always fun.
It's always a pleasure, Brian. Brian and Ryan. Thank
Yes.
you.
That's it.
Thank you both.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Take care.